We have three distinguished members of the downtown community, new to the downtown community. First of all, in alphabetical order, we have Cary Euwer from Metropolitan. Come on up. Cary is the man who's working on 10 Light Street. I made a reference to that a moment ago. He is moving forward aggressively, and you'll hear more about that project in a moment, but we'll ask him why he chose Baltimore. And then, of course, we have Mera Rubell. We just had a great ribbon cutting for the grand reopening of the Lord Baltimore, but she is our hostess here today. She's got a lot to share about the buzz that's being created in this hotel. She came from Miami, and we hopefully she'll stay here, as the mayor made reference to before. And then Ernst Valery. Ernst, New York, right? You came from New York? New York recently, although he's probably the veteran of this group, but he's worked on many projects, the Professional Arts Building in Mount Vernon, but the Chesapeake Restaurant he just opened in Station North, and he's got many other projects. Have you heard of Milk and Honey, this great little market? He's done it here in Baltimore and other cities as well. So they're all relatively new to Baltimore, and we thought, why not ask them why they chose Baltimore?
We've developed about $1 billion worth of real estate over 30 years, and this particular asset is, as you know, 34 stories, $75 million, 430 apartments on all the levels, divided between studios, ones and twos. And it's been a challenge for us. The residential tax credits are a big part of this picture. It's an incredibly complicated asset, but we're making a lot of progress. We've replaced most of the windows already. It's both federal and state historic preservation tax credits involved, and again, the help of the city, especially tax credits, have been a big, important part of that for us.
I was recently in New Orleans, and I noticed they have many buildings, unfortunately, that are the size of this one that are looking for developers. This one, at 10 Light, transferred so quickly. It was a wonderful thing. After Mouser Stockbridge moved to 100 Light, within days, I think, maybe even before Mouser Stockbridge moved out, you were already in there working on the building. It's nice to see that quick transition happening there. Can you talk about your son for a moment?
You didn't say you were going to ask me this question. So it was about 6 months ago. You had the same event downtown. You showed the slideshow, and then you had the movie that you put together, a short video. And I cajoled my son into coming. The next day, he said to me, "I'm moving to Baltimore."
Here because it's my son that actually brought us here. Because we are a family business, very old-fashioned. We have, but we're all equal. We're actually equal. We each take a lead wherever possible. So I'm a kind of a lead person, the face that you will see, but actually behind me is a family. But it was our son that really got us here. He found this opportunity on the internet. You know, young people think like, where's the frontier? They think it's like gone. America's no longer frontier. It was about going west. The truth of the matter is that the frontier in America are the cities like Baltimore. The frontier is where you can make a difference, and where there are invisible opportunities that cost a hell of a lot less. I mean, where in New York could a family with I know you think we have endless money thinking of, buying this, but really, you always have limited resources, and you have to figure out where you're going to put your resources to make the biggest difference. So my son calls us both and he says, I just found something. I just cannot believe that this is available. We got to go there, and literally, we booked the plane ticket, in 3 days, and came down to Baltimore, expecting that the water would be pouring in through the open roof, because for the price that this property was being marketed, it's like, I'm embarrassed to say, it's like Bangladesh. I mean, this is not Bangladesh. So we get down here, and we're like looking, so where, like what, like we were looking for where, it was lonely, it was sad, it was so unloved. This property was so unloved. You realize that things become invisible when love disappears. And of course, the final straw to destroying the dignity of this property was to eliminate its name. I mean, every architectural element of this hotel is based on the history. For example, in this room, there are 6 balconies representing each lord with their seal. There are 6 arches, 3 window arches and 3 door arches. To eliminate its name, it's like to destroy the legacy of what a place is. So my husband and my son, my whole family came here. We were walking around and we made a decision that people thought we were actually crazy. I know you're probably thinking, couldn't you have been wiser with your money? Why Baltimore? Because that's what a lot of people say. Because in a way, this town doesn't like to be pretentious. You are the most modest people on the face of the earth. It's ridiculous. No, seriously. It's time for you to flaunt who you are and what you are. I hate to come in from the outside. You know, I don't like to be the expert from out of town, but I have to tell you, this is the most modest, unpretentious place on earth. That's why I'm so comfortable here. I can like be myself. I can really talk as much as I want. I can make mistakes because this is a place where people will just let it be, you know, like you can be whoever you are. You know, like go have lunch with Rebecca and you realize you can be whoever you want to be. You can open a museum here. You can own a hotel here. Anyway, so our son did bring us here, which it's interesting because a young person, just like your son, sees the potential in this place. And the potential is that you can really make a difference here. And I'm not the young person. I mean, my husband and I are together 50 years, and we're just so excited that he led us to a new family adventure. And that's what we see our business as. It's not about, yes, it's money. You can always put together the money when you have a big idea. And people trust in your ability to pay it back, and in your ability to re-envision, and your ability to bring value to the invisible. This place was so invisible, and I really think that so much of downtown is invisible. Now, I have to also say, this town cannot stand divided. It's a little bit divided. It's like the harbor, and then like this place, you know, like the other side of the tracks. We specialize in the other side of the tracks. We specialize in that because that's what we can afford. The truth of the matter is, we could never afford a building like this in New York, and we certainly can't afford a building like this in Miami right now. I don't think we can afford a 10-room hotel in Miami right now. We go where there's opportunity, and here we are. So this city, yes, it's great that I see that the harbor represents the new. I'm getting away from my son. Okay, Jason, I'm getting there. It represents the new, and the new is great, but the new can be anywhere. But the old history makes this place so unique. And please flaunt that, because you have museums, you have theaters, you have music. The city we came here because of the Cone collections. The first time we came to this Baltimore was to see, you have more Matisses than any other place in the world. That's unbelievable. Matisses, it's worth billions of dollars. I mean, people don't even know. A Matisse is unbelievable. You've got more than any other place in the world. You have ballparks, you have, what don't we, hospitals. People come from all over the world for health here. It needs to join the new and the old.
So background is urban planning and architecture, and to kind of balance that off and be able to sustain a life, I have a master's degree in real estate development as well. And some of the projects we're working on right now is we're working on phase 1B of the Chesapeake. We opened the Chesapeake restaurant, and now we're putting in apartments, artist work-live spaces on the upper floors of the Chesapeake. And then we have plans to build an additional 84+ unit apartment building on the land rail lots directly behind the Chesapeake. And the tax credits played a very big role in that as well. Thank you to the mayor's office and to Kirby and the Downtown Partnership for helping put that together.
You were an advisor on that as well. We thought you're...
Yeah, a couple times.
Now, what brought you to Baltimore?
My story's a lot shorter. So I was at a ULI conference while I was at Columbia. Went to the ULI conference in San Francisco, and had regular table, there was this young man standing at the table talking about Baltimore, and it was Ernst Valery. And I went up to him, and we liked him immediately because there was no one at his table, and he was friendly. So we invited him out for a drink that night, and he was like, "You guys should come to Baltimore. It's an amazing place." And I made a joke, and I said, "Look, Otis, I'm from New York, so I know where that is." And before I started my business in South Philly, renovating row homes, because I speak a little bit of Italian and I could get through sort of like South Philly. And I said, I know Philly, and then I know DC, that's where the president lives, but what's Baltimore? Where is that on the map? And it was a joke, but he said, no, you should come and check out Baltimore. So I come to Baltimore, I take the train down, and I take a cab down to his office. And I walk in and I said, I'm looking for Ernst Valery. And they're like, Director Raleigh? And I'm like, no, Otis. He's the Director of Planning. And so that was very impressive because in San Francisco, he never said anything about being Director of Planning. He basically, we talked about where he went to school, and we have a professor at MIT that we kind of both share, and he kind of loved this place, and he wasn't from here, but he found opportunity here. So, I thought, wow, a place that he's not from, but he found opportunity. I felt like it was some place that I could go, and the fact that he was young, and he loved Baltimore so much, and I wanted to come and see what he loved so much. And he toured me around Baltimore City, and I saw all the different neighborhoods, and it appealed to sort of like the urban planner in me. Urban planning it goes beyond sort of like bricks and mortar. It's about people, it's about creating community, and I felt like that was a great opportunity to do that. And the buildings appealed to sort of like the architect, or wannabe architect in me, that, that was amazed by the quality of the row homes and the fact that they were vacant didn't calculate. And so like the developer in me, the real estate side was like, wow, we can kind of bring all of these things together. We have bricks and mortar, we have people, and then just meeting the people. You said something about not being pretentious, and that's the thing that we love the most about my family and I, what we love the most about Baltimore. When my wife and I first came to Baltimore, we were married for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years at that point, and I drove in the wrong street. I drove in Route 40, and she's like, where are you taking me? And we got to Fells Point, and the community we met there. Baltimore is about people, and what I would love is for Baltimore to be, about more than just the people who went to high school here, but about the people who come here and want to make it home. It has such a hard outer shell. It took me 7 years to get on the inside. But once you're in the inside, it's a very supportive place. It's a very loving place. And it's a place that I think together we can make the greatest city in this country. When we did the professional arts building, we worked with Somerset Development was the lead developer on that.
That's Cathedral and Reed.
Cathedral and Reed. We were looking at potential retail spaces, and we couldn't find any. And I spent maybe, a year begging my wife to open that with me, and then she finally said yes. And it kind of brought the building together, brought the community together. It's what Mount Vernon actually needed. We thought about, a dog grooming place. We thought about all sorts of things, and then we realized we had to figure out what Mount Vernon needed. And so Milk and Honey is a response to what the community really needs. And, there's always a rush to just lease it up. And I felt like, Baltimore gave us the time to sit back and say, what does this neighborhood need? And I think that's what we have to do more of in Baltimore. Not rush so much to just get something in there, but to really, find what our communities, our neighborhoods all really need. Is it a food desert? And if it's a food desert, Mount Vernon needed charcuterie and artisanal cheeses, but other communities have different things that they need. And I think in making a better Baltimore, we really have to think hard and long. And then once we find that need, it's like, how do we all come together? You know, Downtown Partnership, you know, Kirby and Nan have been like my biggest supporters. You know, when other people, you know, don't really, you know, see what you're trying to do, they do. The mayor's office, Colin, you know, the council president's office, Bill Cole, you know, you were the first person I had met at the Professional Arts Building, Bill. You know, I was standing there in my boots and just like, what mess did we all get ourselves into? You know, Jim and Nancy are in DC and I'm here. And he walked up and he's like, I'm Councilman Bill Cole, and how can I help you? And that's Baltimore.
And you've opened other Milk and Honeys, actually, not just in Baltimore, right?
We've got a couple in Philadelphia, and our largest one is in Woodbridge, New Jersey. But you know, we really want to make Baltimore sort of like our focus because it's closer. New Jersey one is kind of tough to get to.
Please ask Ernst to open a Milk and Honey right here somewhere in a block or two from here. It'd be wonderful to have. We often talk about how it's hard to sometimes convey the impression without slides that all this activity is happening because they're in historic buildings for the most part. You know, if there's cranes up, if there's a surface lot, people get it right away. Oh, there's development happening. But these things that happen sort of slyly in historic buildings, it sort of sneaks up on you. And so that is where a lot of our growth is coming from the center. Each one of these panelists has been involved in historic properties. And I was just curious, what appealed to you about historic versus modern? Were there any challenges for you in historic buildings that would be present in a modern building?
Okay, so thank you for that question. It's great. So how many of you, as you sit here, all of a sudden remember a memory that happened in this room? Raise your hand. Hi.
I remember the state of downtown last year.
Literally, everywhere I go in the world, people have a story connected with Baltimore. There's something about Baltimore. It all roads lead back to Baltimore. And it's very powerful. There's the winner of the Pritzker Prize last week, I loved a quote. He said that people's love of a building is what lives on. Buildings don't die if people love the building. The love that I encounter from you towards this building and the history that it has, it's like you can build on that. And as you walk around Baltimore, there's so much history in every single one of these buildings. And to reactivate that history just makes it so precious. And this is what happened to us in Miami Beach. I mean, we bought buildings there with this kind of history. It's very powerful. The Albion Hotel was built by Igor Polovitsky. And then a building that we own in Washington, D.C., interestingly enough, was by Morris Lapidus, who was an architect who did a lot of the hotels in Miami. Morris Lapidus, one of the great architects. You don't start at ground zero when you pull into a historic building. You start with a rich, rich history, and that's very powerful because behind it is an army of people with memory. And there's a memory that all of you have of this room, of this hotel. So to buy into that, it may be invisible, but when you reactivate that, you really feel like you've done something that's tremendously connected to human beings. At the end of as you studied architecture and studied urban renewal, it's all about people. So to activate that people power, like I'm hoping to do today, because we need your power to make this successful. So we hope that your history, this connection, will be so much more powerful than building a brand new hotel. So that's why.
Cary?
What was the question again?
Sorry. Okay, I promise. Any other questions? They're going to be like 4-word answers.
You're wonderful. You're wonderful. Don't worry about it. Cary, any questions? Okay.
Anyway, it's
Are you listening?
yeah.
I said correct. I said correct.
Yeah. So, it's an amazing building. It's 34 stories. There's incredible views. The challenges were getting B of A out of the building, getting termination, and then dealing with all the spaces. And we owe a lot to BCT Rice. I'm not sure you knew what you were getting into when you took on this task. It's a 500,000 square feet, and every corner and every piece of the building is a special condition. But we have some floors that have 22-foot ceilings, residential space. We have loft spaces in the building, and it's a lot of attention to detail. And once you've done the demolition, there's a special condition they have to deal with on a daily basis. So it's an enormous task. But historic buildings and layout of windows, ceiling heights are perfect for the transition into residential.
Ernst, anything you want to add on?
Yeah, you know, so I'm a historic sort of like buff, and I feel like in order to kind of like connect or succeed in the future, you have to somehow connect to your past and like understand your past, and so I enjoy that about historic renovations. And the other thing is I'm an environment buff, so you know they drill into you adaptive reuse, and so the most green you can get is taking something that's there and breathing new life into it. So you know, I really enjoy doing that, and I only hope sort of like someday, you know, LEED could kind of really appreciate, you know, historic renovations and kind of figure out how to, you know, give you LEED points for restoring an existing building.
You know, I mean, what I hear with my two other panelists is there's beyond the success of each of our projects, there's opportunity to go forward. So, except that going forward depends on making what you start a success. And I think making a success out of 440 rooms in this historic building, you're all bringing what the neighborhood needed in the form of this wonderful, nurturing, creative cafe that you created, building 500,000 square feet of residential. We depend on each other. I envision his new residents walking down to our fresh baked goods in the morning, smelling Donna's new cupcakes, freshly baked, sitting down and having a cup of coffee, walking the dog to the new dog walk. You know, there's a dog walk just behind the hotel, which is amazing. It's amazing. So we are interconnected, and one success leads to another success. And when I had lunch with the mayor just last week, I said, you know, we really want to go crazy here. You know why? Because we can. And it's actually it's doable. Because there's so many places that are not doable anymore. You're not going to pull into New York and say, you know what, I have a vision of a 440-room hotel. Yeah, you know what? You know what you can do with that vision? Be frustrated. Very, very frustrated. Okay? But you can become maybe irrational. They call it rational exuberance. But you can actually get crazy here. I told the mayor, if we can just taste a little bit of success here, because this was really going down. I mean, Radisson was they were on the verge of shutting down this hotel. They were absolutely so no value, and if they tried to sell it, it didn't sell. So they were really going to shut it down. They were losing money. It was a loser. So if we smell some success, if we can touch, feel, taste the success, just like what Ernst just said, he'd like to have one on every corner. I would love that. That's fantastic. And there will be opportunity for that because there are going to be so many residential, there are going to be people living here. They might be working in Washington, but they're going to live here because you're going to have a real lifestyle here. You can actually own a home here. So if we taste a little bit of success, the beautiful thing is that we can go crazy here. I told the mayor, I can't wait to go crazy here. So help me go crazy. Help my family go crazy. Once the Lord Baltimore is successful, we would love to, there's so much to do here. It's like endless. Now you're going to be busy for a while, I'm sure your son is coming here because not only for that one opportunity that you're doing now, 500,000 square feet, when do you think this is going to, I can't wait to get your residents walking down the street to us. But he's 28 years old, he's coming here because of not only the opportunity that you introduced him to right now, but he's coming here because he's saying, wow, I can go crazy here. And we all want to go crazy here. And maybe we already started going crazy. Thank you for celebrating this. and proving that we're more exuberant than crazy, rightfully exuberant.
That's a perfect transition to the next question for Ernst and Cary about residents. Who do you think will be coming to your apartments? What are the demographics? What do your market studies say?
Take that one?
Go ahead.
We're right in the heart of the density for all of the employment. We're grateful that T. Rowe Price, again, renewed their lease, doing so much for downtown. Young professionals, what enticed us in the early studies of the building is after work, seeing folks out jogging, running with their dogs. Downtown is alive, and we see young professionals, we see graduate students gravitating towards the building and being near the inner harbor. That's our vision.
And Ernst, I know you and I have spoken about families before. So.
Yeah, so, the people who are coming to Baltimore are, when you graduate from college, you want to come to Baltimore. The empty nesters are coming to Baltimore, but, Baltimore's success depends on families staying in Baltimore. And, you come here and you meet that special someone and you have a child, you get married, you have a child, and that child turns 5 years old, and you start thinking, I need to move to the county because taxes are half and better schools. So I think for Baltimore to be successful and to grow, because we need to grow, we need density, we need to have parking problems for the city to be successful. We need to gentrify the city, but we also need to gentrify without displacing people. We need to keep families here. And that's sort of like my next thing. How do you build for that? Because if families stay here, then you'll have sort of like a steady tax base, and it's only going to be more wonderful for the empty nesters and the young folks who are, coming here anyway.
And I got two more questions. It doesn't all have to be about positive things happening in Baltimore. You've worked in other cities. Any recommendations for us how to improve our economic development process, or anything you went through during developing your properties?
I think we have to tell that. I think, this goes back to the most modest, unpretentious people on the face of the earth. There's nobody like people from Baltimore. It's unbelievable. I think telling the story, telling positive stories. There's a lot of, sometimes I think that there's this idea that negative news sells news. I think it's time to sell the good news. There's a lot of good stuff here. I visited 36 studios of artists in this city. I cannot believe the amount of talent that lives here. And curiously enough, statistically what's happening is that the kids that graduate from MICA and graduate from the other schools choose to live in Baltimore. Young people, just like my son and just like your son, Cary, are picking Baltimore because they see an opportunity of making a difference. It's possible and it's doable, not to mention everything that goes on here. I mean, the theater, the music, there's a lot of fresh music coming out of this place. You wouldn't believe the studios that are happening here, the creative lifestyles that exist here. I went to the 36 studios in 36 hours, which was really a great adventure. And what I found is a lot of students, people who have a very low income are inventing new ways of living, meaning four families will move in together and create a social zone and then have a bedroom zone, but find that together they create community in a way that they can afford it better. So there are all these possibilities of, you can't do that. In New York, the artist is being squeezed further and further away from Manhattan. They're living in the outer boroughs. They literally have to take an hour's trip to get to Manhattan. I told them, if you're going to travel an hour to New Lights Avenue in Brooklyn, you might as well come to Baltimore and own a building. And you know what? That's not so I promise you, I'm going to get some artists that are thinking of living an hour and a half in the Bronx, way out in the Bronx, or where you can't imagine what they have to do to live with any dignity whatsoever. Let them come to Baltimore. We're on this, it's a train trip away, So, what was the question?
Any improvement to the economic development processes, given your work?
Yes, I think The story, just what you're doing today, we gotta tell the story. I think I think you gotta get a little, you have to let people in on this wonderful secret called Baltimore. It really is the theater, the music, the ballpark, just the creative minds that live here. I mean, John Waters lives here, for heaven's sake. I mean, that's unbelievable. He's such a star, and he lives right here. I mean, so many stars come from this place. So if you come, I just want to tell you that every room in this hotel has been renovated, and it's so sexy. And we've got the best mattresses in the world. I was with one of the anchormen in bed today with my shoes on, and he agrees it's unbelievable. It's a great mattress. No, you're laughing. My husband almost divorced me because we tried 200 pillows to get the right pillow. And Bill, where are you? He had the final test of 3. And so, what am I trying to say?
We need more sexy.
Yeah, you gotta sell sexiness. And I'll tell you one thing, the mayor, this is the most magical mayor of any city in America. I mean, seriously, who else has such a magical mayor? She is so dynamic. She's so good looking. I mean, she's so, she's like, and she believes in the city. I think we have to flaunt against our basic instinct. I think we have to start showing off. Because look how hard, New York has no problem showing off. Now, you know what, Detroit, what the hell are they talking? There's so much talk about Detroit. What does Detroit have that Baltimore doesn't have, for heaven's sake? No, seriously. New Orleans, you know what they're flaunting? What is unique to them? They have figured out what is unique to them. Baltimore, you've got something unique. Just pick up your head. When you walk, just walk down the street and just look up at these buildings. Look up at the history. Look up at, this was one of the greatest cities in America. Am I telling you something you don't know? This was one of the greatest cities in America. And there comes a moment, Europe has figured this out, where a city has to reinvent itself and push with what it is now. You can't it was what it was, yesterday's yesterday, and what is today. So what does Baltimore have? I tell you one thing, you have the most incredible army of the most talented artists living in America today. This is a huge resource that's like gold under the sidewalks. You don't even, you wouldn't believe. I went on a 36 studio tour for the WPA. I picked out 15 artists, which then had an exhibition, Marion Bosky's gallery very generously said, of course, Baltimore, of course, my husband's from Baltimore. Anything I can do for Baltimore, go figure. So she presented these 15 Baltimore artists. There is so much talent here, it's unbelievable. This is not to be taken for granted. Richard Florida, who wrote The Creative Class, said you cannot have a city without creative people. Now that goes from the creative class, meaning from the artist who's earning, who's barely trying to make a living. But this is the creative, the writer, the musician, and it goes right up to the people that will not choose to live in Baltimore if creative people are not here. But that's, that also speaks to, listen, my attorney, Marquina, he went to Art Basel for the first time this December. Art Basel, Miami. I had to take the mayor to Basel, took the commissioners to the Basel to say, you know what, this Swiss art fair could make an economic difference for Miami. Usually when you say art, people tune off. They say, we're business people. Let's not waste our time talking about art, right? Art. Read the creative class by me. He said, my good friend, what art does to cities? It is a huge economic engine, and you've got the most basic driving engine in this creative class that's right here under our nose. I was blown
Your
away.
energy is amazing.
Is this politely saying enough? But anyway, I could go on and on.
I said 9:30, we're almost there. So Ernst and Cary, any final thoughts as well? Yes, go
The
ahead.
shorter answer is green space and retail.
Okay. Good.
So another short answer is how do we retain the people we've got, here, and how do we attract new people? And so, the tax credits, like new ideas, right? And I'm looking at Colin because it's not easy, when you take a penny from the budget, how do you replace it? So like, the mayor's office deals with the real challenges because they've got bills, and if you've ever sat at your kitchen table with bills and like you've got X amount in your bank account. So it's really coming up with new ideas and how to keep people here, and